What is Juju to you, and have you ever experienced it?
I don't believe it exists. Especially like the way we see it in Nigeria. I think a lot of people blame things they can't explain or they don't understand. I think there's a lot of money involved. I think a lot of people find it as almost a cop-out, like it's easy to blame a lot of things on it. So personally, I don't think it exists.
I believe it exists, and I believe it's what your people back home do send to you when you're abroad, when things aren't working for you, as you often hear. And it's a form of exchange. You give something and then they give you something back.
For me, I wouldn't say I've experienced Juju. Like when I think of Juju in my head, I'm thinking of like Nollywood and like the Dibian and the shrine and everything. But like today I was talking to one of the girls that I met here, and she was saying like Juju came from this French word called Juju, and it's kind of like what they brought over to us. So even in the old Nollywood movies, you think of like Amadi Oha and all of that, and then it was like for help, to help the people, like help us with this, help us with that. It wasn't necessarily negative. So I feel like maybe in today's world, like we've turned it into something that's dark and evil, but perhaps Juju before that wasn't anything like that.
I am in two minds about Juju. I think firstly, I think Juju is a kind of a lazy, kind of colonial, kind of clumping together of like loads of different like religious systems. From like Juju. When you say Juju, what is Juju? Is Juju like, because there's loads of like native beliefs in Nigeria, and I think it's a lazy kind of clumping together of several kind of belief systems in a kind of dismissive way. Oh yeah, it's just Juju. And also, I think secondly, I think Juju is a bit of a God of the gaps theory. So whenever you can't explain something, you ascribe it to the supernatural. And I think it's just like it gets ridiculous sometimes, because I think a lot of the time, especially us Nigerians, we use it as a cop-out to kind of not take personal responsibility about how our actions affect our lives. So someone will say, oh, they've killed Baba, they've killed Oga, hey, he just fall down and die. But really, Oga is 60 and Oga is eating 5 meals a day. and Oga died of heart disease. But I think because it's so often people aren't thinking rationally, and people are ascribing really normal things that happen in normal life and unfortunate things that happen in normal day-to-day life to the supernatural. And I think it's lazy and I think it's backwards.
For me, I believe in Juju because I've seen it happen in my family. You know, like when people die all of a sudden, you think, okay, there's something wrong, or you know, health conditions or whatever. But this is the instance of my uncle. He died for no reason, and it just showed to me that Juju is real. So I believe it's a traditional, people practice it, and that's the kind of religion. How we have Christianity, how we have Muslim, whatever, that's their one. So you can't dismiss Juju because there's always a contending spirit, always a contending power from God or what we believe in. So Juju is real for me.
Just quick show of hands from the audience. Who would say they believe in Juju, that they believe in the existence of Juju?
Against it.
And who would say they don't? Okay, so more people seem to believe that Juju exists than it doesn't exist. One of the things I was told by somebody from one of the churches I went to is that the reason why Juju seems to affect African people particularly is because we've had less exposure to Christianity. So with every generation, you're supposed to become more immune to the effects of Juju. And I just wanted to know your opinion of that. Is that something that resonates with you?
Yeah, you know, as people burst out laughing almost immediately, because everyone who has been brought up in this country has basically more or less most likely been brought up in the church. So for that pastor or whoever it was to say that it's a far cry, and you probably should have called him out. Did you do that?
I was 15, I didn't know what to say.
So, but yeah, it's one of those things that pastors will do, because ultimately that pastor, more often than not, he's not just a pastor, he's got another job as well. But how's he going to quit his day job? It's by making people come to his church. So by telling people that, listen, Juju is right, but if you come to my church, I'm going to sort out all your problems. That's the business model.
I agree with Juju, and I I think this is where the scare tactics around things like juju come in, because if you look at the facts, that's ridiculous to say because Nigerians have had less exposure to Christianity than other ethnic groups, that's why we're more susceptible to juju. But when you look at it on the ground, that doesn't make sense, because Nigerians and Igbos especially, we disproportionately go to church, especially compared to the native population of the UK. So us churchgoers were churchgoers but were more susceptible to juju? Doesn't make sense. I just think there's a lot of scare tactics and it's just ridiculous, and it's a lot of kind of Harry Potter kind of Expelliarmus nonsense.
Maybe the way the pastor or whoever said that, the way they worded it, didn't make sense, but it's actually true. Even Nigerians haven't been Christians longer than maybe just the UK. We haven't been. Christianity was brought to us by them. So they've been Christians for longer, technically. So if he's saying that they built up a kind of a generational shield, because, you know, they're just say 10 great-grandparents have been praying, and then maybe the 5th great-grandparent brought Christianity to Igbo land, or to Nigeria, wherever, they have technically been Christians for longer, so they built up a generational prayer shield or whatever. So technically, it maybe the way in which it was worded didn't make sense, but that's actually true. So even if your parents have been going to church all your life, all their life, their great-grandparents have been doing it longer.
Can I put you on guys, this doesn't stand up to scrutiny. So, okay, I don't think it's controversial to say black people within the UK we don't earn as much as South Asians and East Asians. South Asians and East Asians are almost exclusively non-Christian. So if you're saying us that go to church, we're less well off than the people who by and large haven't accepted Christianity? That doesn't make sense.
No, that's not what she said, Chids. No. You have to take that back. Take it back, but that's not what Jess said. Because the way you're interpreting it is just very different.
How?
What is your point?
I just think it's ridiculous. So now because maybe our grandparents and our great-grandparents didn't practice Christianity, now we have to go and collect anti-juju points for several generations.
Wait, 1 second. If you have a question in the audience, can you stand up? Wait, can I? So it's that no. So basically, you know, like your grandparents were multi-trillionaires, they were stinking rich.
Okay.
They passed that money down, she passed the business down to you, do you understand? That money, the business, if it's well looked after, could go a few generations down, do you understand? So same with Christianity, that's what I'm saying. So if your great-grandparents passed it on and you didn't dabble into anything else, because a lot of people, they go to church, but they still go to the Juju man down the road. So you can't serve two masters. The Bible says you can't serve two masters. So it's not going to work for you to protect you. So my thing is, if your great-great-great-grandparents have stored up enough prayers, and that can protect you a few generations down. That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to explain what the pastor said to her. I'm trying to give clarity onto it.
I just want to be clear. I think what the pastor said is nonsense, and I just want the crowd to kind of understand what is being said. Our grandparents or our great-grandparents and our ancestors, we are susceptible to juju because of our ancestors, because they believed in their native faith, whereas the Europeans who run this country, whose grandparents were going around the world massacring and enslaving people, God's not punishing them. Where does that? But they're less susceptible to juju, whilst they're. I'm not These are only.
Please.
I'm just happy that it's Chid's head on the platter today, not mine. That's all I'm happy about. But I wanted to say on this topic, the question that was raised, I don't think that you can store up prayers. I don't believe in there's a prayer bank. Okay, if I pray 50 million times, then my great grandkids are going to be good regardless because I prayed. That's first.
Gospel TSB.
stop that. But what I do think is, I don't know if susceptible is the correct word to use, because for me that implies that there are things that are happening to us based off of juju. I don't believe in that. I just think that, one, as Chid said, which please don't put this on camera, I agree with, as Chid said, I think that we give a lot of power to things and we have a blame culture for things we can't explain, such as like we were having a conversation upstairs and someone was saying that, oh, like, you know, what about in situations where every woman of the family, you know, dies at a certain age or something like that. And I was like, have they all checked to see if maybe they have some sort of rare form of cancer that affects the women, i.e. breast cancer has recently been discovered, it can pass from, you know, the females in the family. What about all of those other things? So for me, I don't think that it's that we're more susceptible because our ancestors weren't Christian. Because as Chid said, this whole juju thing, it's lumping together a lot of negativity. Even when you watch Nollywood, one of the things all of the shrine priests say is, oh, Amadio, this and that. All those things were their deities. So they had their gods and these were the things they believed in. Some of it was dark, without a doubt, but generally these were their gods and it wasn't all negative. This is just what they believed in. So I think that the reason why it may be that it seems like it affects us more is because we give it more power and we blame things that probably aren't juju on juju, and someone did fame, fasif, all of these kind of things, whereas there are other explanations to it. You said
Can I interject for a moment? Two questions. Do you think that our hyper belief in juju makes us more suspicious of each other? I remember when I was younger, especially when I go through Oakham Road, and if an auntie was to come behind me, I would always be on guard. But that was only because I've been so brainwashed to expecting that, you know, there is some kind of malicious intent by certain people, especially people who are just asking for help. That I also think that we have a little bit of double standards, because there are a few rappers who practice obia. Is it obia?
What's that?
Obia, and it's Caribbean juju, and a lot of people believe in it. A lot of people practice it, and a lot of people believe in it. And some of the stories I've heard really do convince me. So I wonder if there's any kind of discrepancy in how we judge African juju versus juju from other places.
I feel like what you said is like really, really important, because I think Haitian and the Caribbean version of it, their voodoo, it's glamorized. And it's more, I don't know if socially acceptable is the right word, but it's more acceptable, it's less looked down on. I've seen so many TV shows, so many things where they speak about Haitian juju, they're all like, the white man is always intrigued, like, oh, let me go and see, let me go to the shrine, it's almost like a touristy thing. But with us, there are a lot of negative connotations with the Western practice, the Western African practice of juju and things like that. And it's quite dark and stuff like that. The Haitian voodoo does have some dark parts to it as well, but a lot of it is actually mixed in with Catholicism. So when you go to these shrines, they actually have like pictures of Mary and Jesus alongside their traditional gods and different things like that. In regards to whether it makes us more suspicious of each other, 120% it does. You know, personally growing up, the one time I've been to the village, my dad did not tell anyone we were going. So nobody had a clue. We just rolled up that day and it was like, surprise. My dad was like, don't drink anything we didn't buy, don't eat anything we didn't buy. We didn't eat there. We went, bought the drinks we wanted to drink, drank them and left. And I don't know if it was juju or kidnapping or what, but I think there's just so much suspicion. Even like stuff like cats, for example. We have a cat in our house, and there are people that will literally make comments and like they say it as jokes and stuff like that, but I know they think that's a bit wayward for this Igbo family to like have a cat. And there are aunties that will come to the house and will jump on the kitchen table because of a cat. And it's all of this like this belief that this cat is something bad, and all that story about Sneakbo turning into a cat during beef and this and that. I just think it makes us so suspicious of each other and like
guys,
so suspicious of each other, and I just think it's quite negative where it doesn't need to be necessarily. And also, even as a Christian, because I'm a Christian, I basically believe things that you give power to are what happens. Spending your whole time worrying about if someone's doing juju and you should just be focusing your energy on God and just elevating yourself. So all that time you're spending thinking, oh, did your auntie put something in your soup? Your uncle, no respect at all. He may have just suddenly died, but maybe someone literally did poison him. And a lot of the stuff you go and you get from the DB, as they call them, and they're telling you it's incantation, it could just be poison. It could be rat poison that he's put in there, diluted with water. You pour it into the man's soup and he dies. And you're thinking, oh, the juju bag, but really it's rat poison. So
I agree with them. I think the idea of juju and the culture around it, I think it all feeds into an anti-African kind of narrative. I think I know for a long time I didn't when like old women would walk on my street, I wouldn't help them with their bags. So I was like, I don't know what auntie has put in her bag. That's for me. And I just it actually took Caribbean people to sit me down and say, what are you doing? This is your culture. Why have you got this approach, this fearful approach towards your own culture and your own history? And if you actually, I want the crowd to think, if you go to African people's houses, you'll see loads of crosses, oftentimes, especially Igbo people, you see pictures of Jesus, you see all types of religious memorabilia, but you rarely see African art, because a lot of African art, people have people in their head, they compare it to having juju stuff and supernatural powers, whereas if you go to Caribbean people's houses, it's full up of African art, and I'm like, why can Caribbean people who are one step removed from direct African culture, why are they able to appreciate our culture in a way that we can't? And I think that's in a way that's kind of shameful. And I think all of this kind of juju stuff and these kind of putting our own decisions and how they affect our lives on supernatural forces, I think it's really bad psychologically for the psyche of Africans, and I think it's really bad in terms of personal psychology, in terms of taking responsibility for your actions and taking responsibility for the consequences of your actions.